My name is Nicholas Shane, and for my explorations project, I focused on improving my animations. How do you improve your animations? Well, first of all, you can focus on lighting, you can focus on panning, and you can focus on movement. Using lighting, as we had done in After Effects in animation classes a couple of months prior, can make your animations a lot more realistic, particularly when combined with shadows. This works very well on moving objects, such as people, panning frames, or just varieties of shots in general can make your animation a lot more interesting and a lot more lively than just a still frame. And lastly, focusing on movement and the physics of objects relative to one another can make a big difference in your animation. For example, in this first animation here, I sort of ignored the laws of physics. If you look, the ball doesn't bounce, the plank doesn't sort of pivot on this triangle here in response to the weight of the ball. So one thing to do to improve your animations is to have the objects respond to one another and follow the laws of physics. As the ball hits this, it bounces a little bit, sort of absorbs that impact. As well, the plank responds to the weight of the ball by tilting towards the side that the ball is on. As well, the ball responds to the change in angle of the plank. Another thing I did was to add color and just markings to make a little bit more understandable to the viewer and a little bit clearer exactly on how the rotation takes place. Another thing I did was add a background. The background I decided to make twice as long or twice as wide as my animation, 3840 pixels by 1080 as opposed to the average 1920 by 1080. I did this so that I could pan across. When I first started making this, I was just drawing in pixel by pixel. About halfway through, I remembered that I could just copy and paste sections. So I went back to the beginning, got the first bit, and sort of copy pasted it across, which saved a bit of time. I then added a gradient sky and water, then improved on each of those three bits respectively. I added a little bit to the grass by making a lighter color along the edge, then added reflections to the water, and then finally I added some bits to the sky. In this case it was clouds. I made this first bit and then copy pasted various parts of it to fill out the rest of the sky. When I was making this, my final product, I decided I sort of wanted to explain what I was doing, just as I am right now. And that changed my product from just a simple video that has a base and then an improved version to a how-to video on how you can improve your animations in general. Because I was focusing on doing this, I ended up running out of time to do sound effects and the lighting and panning shots that I wanted to do. But I'm still pretty happy with the end result. And here it is.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Shane, and for my explorations project, I decided to figure out ways to improve animation realism and interest. In the base animation, there is little to no movement, and everything is very static. The board does not tilt, the ball does not bounce. It looks very unrealistic. To give a little bit of realism to the scene, I added a little bit of squash and stretch to the ball, as well as made the board respond to the weight of the ball, tilting downwards as the ball rolled along it. The momentum of the ball carried it a little bit beyond the point where the board started tilting downwards, but eventually the ball rolled down that way. To make the scene more interesting, I decided to add color. First, I colored in the ball, giving it a purple hue, and then the pillar that the board was on, giving it a yellow color. I then added white reflecting marks on both so that it's more obvious to see the movement of the ball as it rolls up and down the slope. I also decided to add in a background. I started with a simple grass background, high enough for there to be ample room for the animation to take place. I then added a gradient sky, water, reflections on the water to make the water more realistic, and finally some clouds to complete the scene.
Thanks for listening to my presentation.